Well, of course, climate change is really a very important issue for indigenous peoples for many reasons, but I'll just cite two. First, the adverse impacts of climate change is really affecting first the indigenous peoples in whichever part of the world, no? Whether these are the indigenous peoples in the Arctic or in the islands or in the forests, it's because indigenous peoples are peoples of the land, no? And climate change impact is of course felt in the land. If you are working with the land, you will know immediately when there's a problem, because you will see it in terms of the way your plants or your animals or your the soil and the water is behaving, no? So it's really I always say that indigenous peoples have already observed the changes in the climate long before the scientists have done it, no? And so the traditional knowledge of indigenous peoples on climate change really dates way back, than the dominant society. So that's one reason. The second reason is we have adapted to climate change for thousands of years, otherwise we will not be here. If you think about the kind of colonization that we went through, the problems that we have faced, and of course with the changes in the climate, we survived and our traditional livelihoods are still there, so we really have a lot to teach the world in relation to how to adapt to climate change. But thirdly, the magnitude of climate change that we face today is a totally different scale. It's so fast, the changes are accelerating very fast, and for us to be able to adapt, we have to get the support of the international community in terms of really lowering the carbon dioxide or greenhouse gas emissions, and we really have to work very actively within that framework. Unfortunately, we're out of the table. No, we are not really actively engaged in the negotiations with the UN Framework Convention on Climate Change. Of course, Kyoto Protocol, we're not there. And yet, the mitigation measures that are being adopted under the Kyoto Protocol are also destroying us. Like you talk of biofuels, for instance, the alternative fuels that they are pushing. Many of our lands now are being taken away from us to expand the plantations on biofuels, whether these are soya or corn or palm oil, in Southeast Asia, or jatropha. A lot of these lands that they are allocating to produce biofuels are indigenous people's lands. So there are now massive land grabs happening because of solution to climate change. And then the other issue is a renewable energy. What they are pushing now are large-scale renewable energy projects like hydroelectric dams, geothermal plants, which are supposed to be renewable, which are supposed to address carbon dioxide emissions, but these are also again going to displace a lot of indigenous peoples from their communities. So we have to look at both the adverse impacts of climate change itself on us, but also the solutions that are being put by the international community before the countries. These are problems that are going to be these are issues that will cause more problems for us, and I think we have to be part of the discussions, because unless we are there, they will just take solutions without thinking about the social impacts of this on peoples like indigenous peoples. So that's why we are concerned about it, and that's why the Permanent Forum has decided that this should be a theme that we should address now. Even long before there were discussions of biofuels, like 2 years ago, the Permanent Forum, in a report that I made with my colleague Tama, we already highlighted the dangers of biofuel production and what it's going to do for indigenous peoples. Now, of course, everybody talks about it because of the increasing food prices, etc. But I think if the perspectives that we offer as indigenous peoples come into the picture, then there will be totally different kinds of discussions. And then finally, in terms of adaptation, we really have a lot to do, and there are now a lot of efforts taken by indigenous peoples in their communities to adapt, like small-scale renewable energy projects, fire abatement projects to lessen carbon dioxide emissions. Of course, the continuation of our traditional livelihoods is a contribution, because most of these are carbon neutral or low carbon kinds of development, and I think we have to strengthen those kinds of of work that's being done by indigenous peoples, because that's where the hope lies in terms of really addressing significantly the issue of climate change.